Okay, let's call this meeting the Haysville Planning Commission to order. First item of business is the roll call.
Oh, yes. I didn't raise names, sorry. Tim Azier.
Present.
Nicole. Present. Fred. Randall. Weathington.
Here.
Debbie. Richard.
Here.
Mark.
Here.
Pat.
I thought there was already a Randall last name up there, so.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I always switch back and forth between first names and last names.
Right on, yeah, present.
Next item of business is the approval of minutes of April 23rd, 2020.
I move we approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion second to approve as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Those opposed? Now abstentions. Raise your hand. Thank you. Just easier for if we just do it in order instead of all at once. Next item of business is the election of officers. Currently, I am the chairperson, Bob is the vice chair, and Angie is the secretary. Does anybody wish to nominate someone else or wish for an increased role in the planning commission? Raise your hand, speak your voice. Come sit in this chair. Okay. Hearing none, is that a vote to re-elect all officers?
Would someone like to make that a motion?
Yeah,
I move to re-elect all officers.
I second it.
Motion and second to re-elect all officers. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Under new business, consideration of revisions to the zoning ordinance for assisted living facilities. You want to run them all at once, Angie, together? Or you want to handle one at a time?
We should probably handle one at a time.
Okay. So we'll begin with assisted living facilities. You want to present that?
Yes. Currently, our zoning ordinance only allows for nursing homes, and over the years, there have been a more variety of assisted living and nursing home situations that we don't currently allow for. Assisted living is becoming more popular. It doesn't require quite the care that a nursing home does. So what we're proposing here is to delete the nursing home definition that was in there originally, add a new definition for assisted living, or add a definition, change the nursing facility a little bit, and skilled nursing care definition a little. And these conform more with what the state of Kansas and the statutes, how they define these situations.
And this is currently not allowed in our current code.
Currently, only nursing homes are allowed.
Okay.
So we would treat assisted living as a nursing home.
But when
But
we
they are
when we
two
wrote that,
very-
stuff like that didn't exist,
Yeah.
so, okay. Just wanted a clarification.
Also presenting that we would add assisted living as a conditional use in the A single-family residential and as a permitted use in the 1 and 2 family, 2, 3, and 4 family apartment and light commercial districts.
Okay. So now is probably the time to listen to comments from the public. I've got your card here, but when you step up, would you repeat your name and address for the record?
You bet. Neil Hawker-Smith, 410 North Longman. And I trust, well, for our evening, everybody, but I trust that everybody's gotten my letter and received it and has read through that. So I make my intentions pretty clear in that letter, I believe, of the concerns of revising the zoning ordinance to include assisted living. Just want to be clear, though, not against assisted living. I just believe that there needs to be a proper zoning ordinance in place for it. Is there any questions that you have for me?
One thing I wanted to clarify is what we're doing here is not for a specific location. Each individual location would have to come back through us, and we'd be able to put additional restrictions on each individual use as a conditional use. depending on how big it is, where it's at, all of that. All we're talking about tonight is allowing that as a conditional use in a few different areas where now it's not allowed at all. So we would allow, if this goes through, we would allow the potential for something like that to happen in single family or some of the other different land uses that we currently have, just as an option. But each one of those would have to come through, and we would have a public hearing on each one, and we would be able to speak to yourself or anybody else from the public that wanted to be in opposition or in favor of every one of those, but have specific facts about how many beds they have, what their square footage is, all of the individual facts that make each one of those cases unique.
Mhm.
So what we're considering tonight is just whether or not we want to allow that at all in those uses, not necessarily specific areas of town or
Yeah,
locations.
yeah, okay, I understand that.
All right, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Any questions for him, or statements, or?
When you say that it would have to come back through each time, that's just for the conditional use, that's not for the permitted use in the 1 and 2 family and.
Correct, that's just,
Yeah.
you can change this proposal, but that's what I'm proposing.
So, sorry, I didn't capture that. If it was in the, I don't have the memo in front of me, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, the memo. I got mine.
I've got those two,
No.
that one, and that one. Take your pick.
What's the proposal is to put into the
Oh, that's part of that one.
add assisted living as a conditional use in the following districts, a single family. So is that where you were saying, just to be clear, is if you would, somebody would want to actually put assisted living into a District A, then have to come back here through the board?
Yeah. Yep. And
What
with,
about and is that the same for B, 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 C, C, and D? Is that your question?
Yeah. so
Okay.
they would
yeah,
have-
so for all of those that are already multifamily designations for zoning, so that's duplexes, apartment complexes,
Mhm.
quadplexes, that would just be an allowable use in those. But for single family, the only way you could get it in single family would be to come back and have us included as a conditional use,
Yep.
which allows us to put lighting requirements and screening requirements and whatever else we feel is necessary to separate that from the single family.
Because right now, in District, as an example, District D, like commercial, or maybe it's an apartment, that's where the senior center on K is at right now, right? That's the district for it.
The senior center is the D-like commercial,
Yeah.
the senior living residences are multifamily,
Okay,
or the apartment.
okay. It would just make sense to keep it in that same precedent.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, though. Humble opinion. You guys are the experts.
Okay. Anything else you want to clarify before your
No, that's it.
time is up?
Thank you. No, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussions or questions?
So BB, what would that be? It says 1 and 2 family.
BB is a unique district in that they could have single family or you could have duplexes. So I think there's a few spots in town where they do that. They've all chosen to build duplexes,
Okay,
but if somebody wanted to go in and put a single family home in that area, they could.
okay.
And so a vote, Tim, just to make sure I'm on the right page.
You're asking Angie, not me.
No, sorry. Angie, so then a vote for this would allow it in A, B, 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 C, C, and D, and a vote against this would disallow it in A, correct?
No, what it would be considering today, and today it's just a consideration. Before anything would be finally approved, we have to actually have a public hearing. So that's where if you wanted to make some changes, we could do that today, and then we would publish whatever those recommendation is at that time in the paper. But what you could be, if you chose to approve it as presented, it would be as a conditional use in the A district and as just permitted by right in those other 4 districts that are listed.
Okay.
If anybody has thoughts or wants to limit or expand this, now would be the time.
I would be in favor of limiting it away from the A single family. Because I'm sorry, I have to completely agree with Mr. Hockersmith that there's enough other areas that these could be put in, that it doesn't need to have a whole nother area that's predominantly single family homes that people are invested in their time and money and livelihood into, just to have this added into another area.
Did you, when you added this, did you have a specific area of town that you were thinking was potentially a candidate for that?
Not necessarily.
Everything, and I don't know that there's any open lots left, but I know that we had some lots in that area where K Street is that backed up against the tracks that we have in the past gone to duplexes because they were the last lots and they were against the back of the tracks, and that's the one place where I thought it kind of made sense.
Right.
Are all
there's
of those spoken for now?
The duplex lots, I believe, there's still along the lake in the river forest, I believe it's the second edition. There are available lots there.
Yeah, but the lake is not, from where I sit, probably appropriate. As appropriate as being against the tracks. In any subdivision, the lake lots are kind of the coveted lots, not the last sold or leftovers, so. Any other discussion about inclusion of single family as a conditional use? Anybody else have thoughts on that? One way or the other? I guess if you feel that way, make a motion, see if we can get a second and see where we're at.
Yeah, I make a motion to exclude it from the conditional use of a single family.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second to exclude, this a single family from, as a conditional use for senior housing alternatives. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye. Nay, or whatever.
Do you record everyone's vote? Do we need to do a hand raise
Meyer.
in favor of the motion in the second? Okay.
Okay, so just to make sure we're clear. You're fine with the definitions.
Yeah.
We want to move single family off of the list, but still allow it in the 1 and 2 family, 2, 3, and 4, and A apartment, CC
Yes.
apartment and D light commercial.
Yes.
Okay.
And then if they've got a location that is currently zoned single family and they want to go to one or the others, it's got to be a full zone change.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Let's move.
You recorded the vote?
Yes.
Okay.
You opposed, all others yay.
Okay.
Next item is wireless communication facilities.
These changes are basically to come into compliance with state and federal laws and orders. Since the last time that we revised those sections, and I actually think it was in 2016 and 2017, they have come up with a new ruling to make it easier for wireless companies to get these small cell 5G type items in there. They have shot clocks, timeframes that we have to first approve and make sure the application is complete, and then following that to make a determination. If the city doesn't make a determination in time, then it's considered approved. There's a few definitions in there because of the shot clocks, the distributed antenna systems, and the small wireless facilities. And then the FCC also established fee maximums, so those are included also.
You say the shot clock is new per 16, 17, you think?
Since the last time we adopted this, yes.
Okay.
I think they were recommended and now they're required.
Okay.
Previously.
Because
But we
I
didn't
remember
have
them, but I don't know that I know what year that was. last time we talked about it?
I don't remember, it was not as long as you think.
So really, this is just bringing us in compliance with the feds?
Yes.
Do we really have any choice?
Not really.
Okay. All right.
It's a really valid point, though. It cuts down discussion quite a bit.
Then I make a motion that we approve this
I
as
second it.
written.
Motion and second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Next item is cargo containers and temporary storage containers.
This is because cargo containers are becoming more popular as multiple uses. People are using them as buildings, storage units outside their property. So this kind of says what you can do within the certain districts. In residential districts, they would be allowed as a moving pod or storage that would just be temporary, so they could have it for up to 30 days within 1 calendar year.
That was my first question. Well, how do you define temporary? That is
We did put a time limit.
clearly written out.
Commercial districts, they can't be visible from the public street, either from placing it behind the building or putting a fencing or screening up. And and then if you're in a residential and you happen to face a commercial building, then you would have to require that it be screened from that residence, but if that residence backs up to it, then you wouldn't have to screen in that case. Although there are some landscape regulations that might come into play. It talks about not stacking them, not using them as a sign. We do have one like that. You noticed off the turnpike. So what is proposed here wouldn't allow that situation. And then there is a time limit listed to bring the ones that are not in compliance into compliance.
Do we have a provision for using those as building structures?
New building codes, there's an appendix Q that addresses different materials that could be used for the tiny homes. And then we do have that tiny home zoning district, but because of the minimum house sizes, they wouldn't necessarily fit unless you used more than one.
Well, I know there's a couple places that are using those as, like a bar district or whatever stacked. And is that something that we just absolutely wouldn't allow? Or is that somehow blended into this code so that it could be considered?
This is trying to limit that because we're saying you couldn't stack it.
Yeah, but this is geared
this is
more
more
towards
towards
storage
storage.
of materials, not necessarily a building structure.
And it's not intended necessarily to prevent that, but if you would like to include that, we can include some verbiage.
Well, I think we've got to have control over all of it, but if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I've got an idea for whatever, and I'd like to use these as my structure and stack and build a little district with food trucks or whatever, and it's something that we think that would benefit the city, I don't want it to be completely disregarded because it happens to be made out of shipping containers and we didn't ever consider that. I'd like the ability to control it in the future, but I don't know that I know how to write into this code that as long as you're not using it for storage, you're using it for your active business, you have a different requirement than if it's storage. That's kind of what I'm getting at without really having the correct words to articulate it.
And we don't have to do this tonight, too.
What-
I
no,
can
I-
put together some.
I'm
proposals
fine
based
with
on-
all of it as written. I would just like to include a section for non-storage of materials
Okay.
using shipping containers as alternative building structures.
You talking about like requiring a COA or something like that?
COA meaning,
Like a certificate of occupancy if they were gonna be doing business out of it, or a bar or something like that?
They'd
yeah,
have to get that through building code anyway, they'd still have to get a permit.
but I don't know that it's allowed in there either.
Well, you're kind of talking about that place in Wichita.
Yeah.
That's all storage containers and it's,
And it's not used for storage of materials, it's used for
Business.
active businesses. And I think that's something that if done in the right way, could fit here well and could benefit the city. And I don't want to miss out on something like that because it happens to be made out of shipping containers instead of stick built.
That's a good point. I like that.
So I'm fine with tabling this until we can get some sort of amendment written that includes that.
Now, do you want architectural controls written into it to an extent? Or not
Well,
to exceed certain heights?
I think trying to write architectural controls into the code is problematic because it's all individual based on whatever the use is. I think we've got to have some sort of say in what that is on the back end, but up front, I think just if you're using your shipping container as your active business, then some of this doesn't apply. You can put it in the front, you can stack them, you can do other things that aren't allowed with this code. This applies only to storage of materials and goods.
Okay.
And then if that's a separate building code thing we've got to tackle down the road to allow that, we can do that in the future. Actually, we probably need a vote on that.
Sure.
So I will make the motion that we do all the stuff I was just talking about.
I would second it.
A second to all
Motion
the
and
stuff.
second to do all the stuff we were just talking about. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. So with that separated, do you think we can move forward with this? Or do you want to table this and bring them both back together?
I think we could go ahead with this because this is primarily for
Yeah.
storage, and then we can bring something back on.
With the caveat that this is for storage of materials and not necessarily buildings. Okay. So any more discussion on the additional requirements for cargo containers as storage?
What was the date based on for compliance? Because that's kind of far out, September 23rd, 2021.
I did a year from when I think it
Thought we were
could
gonna get
possibly
it
be
in.
adopted.
Yeah.
Do we normally give them that long
Sometimes we don't even make them until they move it.
But the intent here is not to let someone grandfather in, it's to exclude it in the first place. So
Right.
I'm fine with a year.
Mhm.
I think that's more than enough time for someone to get their affairs in order and move a shipping container from next to the turnpike entrance. But I don't want to put a longer date on it. I don't want to let someone grandfather in because they happen to do it before we got around to limiting it.
Oh, I was thinking if anything would shorten it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I agree. Probably a year is fine. If you want to make it 6 months, you want to make that motion, you'll probably get a second, and we can do that. But okay. Any other discussion? Then is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it as is.
I'll second it.
Motion and second to approve cargo container regulations as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Next item of business is the review of the historic master plan.
I didn't print the really colorful one. I just printed the line drawing. We did go back through the historic committee, and they did ask that we color code what's been done, what hasn't been done. So we just made the ones that they're still proposing to do the blue.
Yep.
With the black on the others. It did move the chapel to where there was a community center originally. Added a VFW memorial up at the corner is what they're proposing. We haven't really met to discuss their official proposal, but they are wanting to make these changes at some point in the future. So I thought you might wanna have
Just make,
thoughts on that.
just make these changes to their current master plan or move forward with some of these as their next item?
They wanna move forward with these. These are the blue ones are the ones that they still wanna do in the future. They did take away a couple of things that they felt were just never gonna happen.
Okay.
So they'll come up with a formal proposal to change it. But I just wanted you to be aware that these are coming down.
So we need no action, this is just
Just to
informative.
review information. It was on the schedule to review,
Yeah,
but knowing that this was their last topic of discussion back in January, February. I know we've met once since then, but we had too many other things on the agenda, so we didn't get to that. They're working on revising and coming up with establishing some goals and
priorities.
criteria, yeah. prioritize.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion on the Historic District Master Plan? No items under old business? Is there any correspondence, informational reading? Anybody have a committee update? No off-agenda items? We'll move to item 10.
I'd move we adjourn.
I second that.
Motion and second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.